In this week's astrology, there's not a lot of things going on, but the aspects that are forming this week are action taking. So we have some activation from the inner planets and also the social planet, the most benevolent planet, which is Jupiter. And that's pretty much it. We have the lunations that are taking place from the energy of Virgo to Libra to Scorpio and Sagittarius this week. This makes the mood of the week very changeable and flexible, as the zodiac sign of Virgo is mutable earth and the zodiac sign of Sagittarius is mutable fire. So we are crystallizing something that is going to be the product of the changes that we do, the actions that we take in a different way, or maybe how we're seeing things from a different perspective and solving the problem, puzzle, etc. in a different way to get a different result. So it's all about changing, looking to see what worked, what didn't work, and how can you fine-tune those processes so you can get the best outcome. The lunation in Libra is a little challenging because it does form a square to Pluto in Capricorn, but the beginning part of the moon transiting Libra, it forms an opposition to Jupiter, which is in opposition, but it's still a very benevolent opposition because Jupiter just expands things. It's just a day that we might feel like a little bit more depleted on our energy because we're overdoing things, or it might feel that we want to do like big things, like eat a big meal or cook a lot of food, because Jupiter just tends to like exaggerate and expand everything. And the energy of the moon is our moods. It's also comfort food. And in the sign of Libra, it can also talk about our connection to what makes us feel love and having graceful communication. Maybe it does bring up some sort of disagreement or argument, but it's going to be easier to be expressed, as any aspect to Jupiter tends to be felt more in the positive way. And this doesn't mean that we're only going to experience arguments. No, that doesn't have to be the case. But you'll notice that communication is a big theme this week. Mercury in the sign of Libra tends to be very talkative, as it is an air sign. So it does like to speak its truth and also make sure that it advocates for just causes. So in this energy, Mercury likes to balance and harmonize things, and he'll do it by making you aware of the two sides of the coin. And when we see that opposition to Jupiter, Jupiter is going to expand this. So it does increase the amount of talking that we'll be doing. You'll find yourself that even mental activity is very, very strong. Very, you feel like restless. You have all these ideas. So it's not as pushed through like an aspect to Uranus, or as erratic, but it is going to be a theme for the week where we're just communicating more, talking more, socializing more, and also with a lot of grace. It does bring in the possibility of having some type of disagreement or argument, but nothing too harsh until we have that aspect to Pluto, like I mentioned. And then from there, the moon goes into Scorpio. That one's a tough one. It's been tough because that's where the nodes are. And I mean, the moon in Scorpio is not a favorite position for the moon. So it's tougher when the moon makes that opposition to the north node and the conjunction to the south, because that same day it also makes a opposition to Uranus, so it becomes more of a nerve-wracking day. And this is going to happen on September 1st, right when Jupiter and Mars make a sextile. And this is quite positive, especially because Mars seems to be the mediator between Jupiter and Mercury, which is quite interesting. Mars doesn't necessarily like that mediation position, but he's in the sign of Gemini. That is a Mercury ruled sign, forming a trine with Mercury. So, in regard to the energy of Mars in Gemini forming that trine to a Libra Mercury, we will see more energetic expression, more passionate expression. And this is a signature of speaking up for justices or speaking up for injustices. So standing up for what you believe in, but in a very diplomatic way where you're still sharing your point and it's still coming across, but you're not letting down. You're not settling for anything less. You're making sure that your point is understood, and you're also speaking from a place of passion. So it's going to be a very emotional middle of the week, but nothing major. Again, Mars is making a sextile with Jupiter, and it's making a trine with Mercury, and Jupiter and Mercury are about to make that opposition. So it's mediating things. Now, this is again indicating that things from the past are coming in, because the ruler of the South Node is Mars, and Mars is the one that's mediating the opposition of communications and belief systems, because Mercury rules communication and our thought process, and Jupiter is the thought turned into a belief. So it's our higher ideals. And since Mars is aspecting via a trine to a Libra Mercury and aspecting via a sextile to Jupiter in Aries, and he's the ruler of the South Node, it's bringing up things from the past. Scenarios, people, situations that we need to close. But this is like the ending of this scenario, as Mars is ready to move on, no longer going back and forth or trying to find a middle ground in the situation. Mars is here to finalize it. Like, this is it. We didn't come to an agreement. We're done. Or, yeah, we did come to an agreement, and this is what we decided. So it's great energy to mediate and to find closure to things that have been lingering. And I just think this aspect is perfect for that, because we can move on quickly and no longer teeter-totter in that situation or re-invite this person back into our life, etc. So watch out for those exes sending you a text message, that's Mercury, and maybe trying to hook up with you. Remember, Jupiter was notorious to have affairs and other wives. Even though he was married to Juno, he still had multiple affairs with all sorts of goddesses, gods. I mean, you name it. There's a mythology for all the encounters he had. So Jupiter will bring those topics into our life, and Mars also ruling a side of sexuality, but a also expression of the way that we take action and where we find passion. We might be able to understand this situation from a different perspective, where we know that it's no longer working for us in a specific way or fashion that we've been tolerating or we've tolerated in the past. And now it's easier to cut those behaviors and say, I can't participate in a relationship like this. I can't be part of this anymore. Or talk about it. Bring these things up within a very safe and harmonious conversation with your partner, so you can come to a agreement on what are your needs, what are their needs, and how you can meet each other's needs and move past old behavior. So it's really good for relationship. It's a very relationship based week. Most of the week we have that aspect active as Mercury slowing down to go retro on September the 9th. So the speed of Mercury is much slower. He lingers around these degrees for longer. So he remains with that opposition to Jupiter in orb a little longer, and also that trine to Mars. So it's a quite nice week, I think, especially to talk things out and to really come to an agreement with people. It's a very nice energy. Then at the end of the week, the moon moves into Sagittarius, and we end the week on September 4th with a moon in Sagittarius. And we also have Venus at the later degree of Leo at 29 degrees, as she is then going to be entering Virgo the following week. And that's when we can talk about that later. So thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to catch me live on IG on Mondays at 6 p.m. And if you liked this podcast or weekly astrology review, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and comment below. Let me know how this week is going for you. Thank you so much. And remember, always stay curious and ask what's in your stars. Bye. Love and light.